Welcome to Lighten Up, the Art of Living Clutter-Free, a podcast where we tackle the literal and figurative clutter standing between you and your healthiest and happiest life. I'm Melanie, your host, coach, and guide on this journey to help you design a life that you love. Whether it's clearing out your kitchen cabinets, untangling your digital files, or letting go of the mental blocks that hold you back, we're here to make space for what truly matters. Let's lighten up together. Starting now. Welcome back to Lighten Up, the Art of Living Clutter-Free, the place where we talk about clutter and health and wellness and all the amazing things. And today is one of those days where I brought a friend. I have a guest here today, a guest that I have been waiting to have on the show. We are aligned in so many ways, but let me give her bio first, and forgive me, I'm going to read. Aransas brings a unique combination of deep behavioral research expertise and transformative coaching skills honed over more than 2 decades. She's worked with major organizations like Disney, Best Buy, and the Sierra Club. We have to talk about that. Okay. To unlock the mysteries of human motivation and behavior change. As a well-being and leadership coach, Aransas has empowered thousands of women through her distinctive approach that blends rigorous research methodology with practical coaching tools. Aransas is an accomplished author, having written dozens of prompt journals for personal growth, including the workbook used on Oprah Winfrey's 2020 Vision Tour, which I love that book. I tore it apart. Parents might recognize her children's series, Wally the Worried Walrus, which helps young readers develop emotional intelligence. When she's not transforming lives through her coaching or serving on the board of 826 New York, let's talk about that too. Aransas hosts the award-winning Uplifters podcast, where she identifies patterns across diverse women's experiences and distills them into practical insights about building courage and resilience. Thank you for being here, Aransas.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. Watching you grow and thrive and connect with more people has just brought me so much inspiration and so much joy.
Thank you. So, for those of you who don't know, Aransas and I share a birthday. And, there's a lot of people out there that have the same birthday as someone else, but this is like more than just a number. And I love numerology, human design, astrology, anything that, that aligns through the sun, the moon, the stars, the earth, and timing. Like, love it all. There is a 5-year difference. I'm not going to say who's older and who's younger. But what I will say is that there is something very uniquely special about the number 13. But I feel like we own that because we actually were born on the 13th. So anyway, we could spend like hours just talking about numbers, the sun, the moon, and the stars. I really feel very strongly about that, but that is not why I brought Aransas here today. Aransas has been an amazing mentor to me for well over 20 years. But one of the reasons Aransas is here is because she has encouraged me to explore this clutter thing in ways that other people have not. So she's here to talk about clutter, but from a completely different perspective than I have. But before we do that, the Sierra Club, really?
Yeah.
And 26 NY. So have we met Dave Eggers?
So I have not met Dave Eggers. I'm new to the board. He was at our gala last year. This year, our gala is going to be so sick. We have both Mo Willems
Wow. Yeah.
and RJ Palacio speaking.
Holy moly.
Holy moly, indeed.
Oh
I'm
my
so
goodness.
starstruck. You should come. It's such an extraordinary organization. The work they do across
Really?
all 5 boroughs is so
Yes.
impactful and so needed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And how perfect for you, because you're such an amazing storyteller and have kids that are great storytellers. And isn't storytelling what your husband does for a living also?
Yeah, we're a whole story family.
Wow.
I mean, I think it's appropriate that he's Greek and I'm mostly Irish. So, both good storytelling traditions.
So I want to talk about clutter. And I said, Aransas, what aspect of clutter do you want to talk about? And I thought, like maybe she'd email me back a sentence. I know Aransas better than that. She came up with such amazing things. I want dive in. Tell me what it is that you said, oh, well, this is what I want to talk about.
Yeah, thank you. So, as you mentioned, I've been the host of the Uplifters podcast for the last 3, wait, is it are we hitting we're hitting our 2-year anniversary next week. So starting our 3rd year. And I really started this project for a lot of reasons. One was I understand deeply and very personally the impact of the people that we surround ourselves with. And as I was going through transitions in my own life and career, I wanted to make sure that I was surrounding myself with voices that lifted me up, that inspired me, who helped me live more bravely and courageously. But I'm also a researcher at heart. And as somebody who has spent my career researching mindset and creating mindset oriented work in all sorts of formats, I really wanted to understand what the most courageous women were doing, how they were thinking, how they were building the resilience to face challenge and face blocks and barriers and turn those into purpose and greater impact. And so at this point, I've interviewed well over 100 women and have begun the research synthesis project, or part of the process. And framework has begun to emerge in that I'm really excited to talk through with you today. But as you asked me that question, it dawned on me that reducing clutter is as at its heart an act of courage, because we are overcoming so many mental and physical blocks and barriers, so many worries and anxieties in the release of clutter. And so it felt like a really interesting way to start to explore that courage framework in new ways
Mhm.
by saying, okay, how does this apply specifically to the release of our mental and physical clutter?
I love that because it allows us to like remind people who are listening that clutter doesn't just come in physical form. It's not just the china my grandmother left me or, the clothing that I just can't get rid of because it's a different size than I am and it's a size I want to be. That clutter at its roots really is mental blocks.
Right.
What is getting in the way of us doing whatever it is that we want to do, whether it's a goal associated with getting a job or going back to school or painting a room, like all of the things that we say we want to do, there are 9,000 reasons why we can't do it. And all of those are based on some kind of mental block associated with clutter, for sure.
And every one of them are asking us to release some belief or some truth we've held as dear. And that's freaking scary.
Yeah, really scary.
Yeah.
We think, when I think of clutter, one of the things I think of is like, a collection or a collection of memories and, like people having a difficult time letting go of things later in life. I think because you're collecting these things, you're collecting your memories. They're a symbol of you. They're almost like proof of life.
Mm,
And so, of course, it's going to be hard to let go of some of those things, but it's also like our proof of life and symbols of our life are the stories that we have been telling, whether they're based on reality or based on some, false sense of who knows what. So, all right. So, talk about being courageous. Like, what stops us from being courageous?
yeah, I mean, honestly, it's our mindset, right? It is our fears. But I have noticed that there are 7 key mindset shifts that these women make in the act of doing really big, brave things. And we're talking about a wide range of experiences. So I've talked to many women who were the first in their fields, trailblazers like Melissa Ward, who was the first female, first openly gay, first Black pilot in a US commercial airline. I've talked to uh, people like Jenny Cheng Chu, who just released today her book Dreamweavers. It's amazing, about the story of her journey from a teeny tiny village in China with no running water or electricity, moving to America. And in the process of coming here with no English language skills, no big network, really made some daring moves. She tells a story about hearing of another woman who had made a similar move in fashion. And she was like, well, if Vera Wang can do fashion, I know some things about textiles. I could do that. So she applied to FIT. She'd literally knew nothing about fashion design. They asked her for a portfolio. She went to the library, figured out what a portfolio was, went to Pearl River Mart, picked up the materials to buy to make a portfolio, went home and made a portfolio and applied amazingly, got in, and since then has built a multi-million-dollar business called Lush Home Decor. And now, it's got this incredible film based on her life story, as well as her book that was released today. And so story after story, you hear about people being able to achieve things despite incredible obstacles. And so as I looked across this wide range of stories, my job as a researcher was to really drill into what these women were thinking that was allowing them to keep moving forward because they were scared. They're no different than you and me. Like you and I both have had experiences where like, this sounds cool. I'd do this, but it's really scary to think about what we don't know, what we're ready for, what we have permission to do, what we're giving up in the course of change. And yet these women, through these mindset shifts, have been able to make the leap over that hurdle. So I'll walk you through what I've identified as the 7 key habits of courage. And then we can think maybe about how those apply specifically to clutter. So
Yeah.
the first thing these women do is they convert the inevitable questions that we all have, these ultimately paralyzing questions about, am I ready? Do I have permission? Am I good enough, smart enough, rich enough, informed enough? Those are questions that if you sit with them too long, are going to stop you in your tracks. And they've learned how to convert those into actions. Ultimately, most of the time by changing them into different questions, ones that are step oriented and process oriented. I know another one of your guests, Sonia Wiseapple, on my show talked about changing big ideas into tasks. And that fits solidly within this idea. The second thing they do, the O in the courage framework, is they opt for progress over perfection. They allow themselves to get messy, to learn through doing. And this, in some ways, is the most fundamental difference between people who get started and people who stay stuck. The other thing they do, and we've given an example of this in the course of our conversation already, is they unite with allies and amplifiers. So they find other people who believe in their dreams, who have the power to connect them with other people, who want to encourage and support and uplift them. And they don't like hide their dreams, right? They say, hey, I think you get it. Can you help me? And it is that invitation to support and amplify our dreams that allow them to begin releasing into the world, which is R. It's really easy to want to hold on to the baby, right? And we've all seen it. I think there's actually probably a pretty strong crossover between people who were over-parented and clutter in some cases and under-parented in others, maybe. But we've all seen it and felt it, right? This desire to hold something we love so close out of both a desire to protect it, but also a fear of somebody calling our baby ugly, that we play really small. And I mean the proverbial baby, of course, whatever that dream might be. We play really small. We keep it really close. We protect it. We think we're protecting it by encasing it in our loving padded arms. But what we're really doing is limiting it. We're not allowing it to expand and grow. So they say bravely and boldly, this is my dream. This is what I have to offer. And man, is that scary for most of us because again, it invites in fears of judgment and interpretation. What are people going to think of me? And then I would say probably the thing you hear most powerfully on the Uplifters podcast, and certainly we hear it in your personal story, is they alchemize their struggles into strengths. This magic trick is so powerful and so unique for each individual story because we all have struggles. We all have worries. We all have difficult circumstances. I could tell you right now, 20 things in my own life, 20 things in each of my own children's lives that would make you go, wow, a human being can handle that? I can think of 20 things from your life that would make me say, wow, how did you make it through? And the answer over and over again is that I learned how to take these things that felt really freaking hard. And instead of hiding them with shame or thinking of them as my limits, I decided to turn them into my strengths. Then they get really good at granting themselves permission to speak the truth. Communication is a massively important part of courage. And It is courageous interpersonal communication, but it's also courageous intrapersonal communication.
Mm.
It's speaking the truth to ourselves. Again, this is so much about coming out of hiding for so many of us. And then finally, last and certainly not least, they establish renewal practices.
Mm.
It's hard work to grow and to act with courage. And so when we talk about like pushing the edges of our courage in order to grow and expand, what we're really saying is, okay, I'm going to put in the mental, the physical labor to grow. I'm going to face the fears. I'm going to hold my breath sometimes and leap without knowing what's behind or beneath me or in front of me. And all of that takes a toll mentally, physically, spiritually, relationally. And so a huge part of sustainable courage, which is what I'm really interested in. I'm not really interested in the actual physical act so much of I'm going to leap off a giant building and see what happens. Woo! But
Please
sustainable,
don't.
no, sustainable lived courage. And I think that absolutely demands that we learn how to take care of ourselves.
Right. Oh my God, I have so many things to say.
Yay.
As a result of listening to that, one of you got to the whole like jump. Did you say jump off a bridge or jump off a
Cliff, I don't
mountain?
know. Whatever.
You
Same,
know, like
same.
the Verrazano Bridge is right there. So if you're jumping off of something, you're going to jump off the Verrazano. But I had one of the first things I wrote down when you started with that was that concept of being fearless. And what does that like really mean? Because like, do I actually have to have no fear in order to be able to do the hard things? Because fear, fear is a necessity.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
what keeps it's what keeps my kids from getting in a white van. You
Mhm.
know, it is what keeps some of us from walking in the middle of the street, you know, against the traffic. And maybe we would call that common sense now, but in order to make sure we don't do those things, I think that there's like a little like it's okay to experience fear. So you're nodding your head. What does that mean to
Nodding
you?
my head because, first of all, you made me think of my Uncle Sammy, who had an adrenal disease called Addison's.
Mhm.
And one of the effects of his adrenal disease is that he did not release fear hormones. And it didn't mean that he was without fear. There are people who truly have a disorder where they don't have fear and they make that can lead to some really poor
Really poor
choices.
choices.
Sammy just didn't have the adrenal release of that
Mhm.
fear hormone when going fast predominantly. And so what that allowed him to do was to be the top motorcycle racer in the state of Texas into his face. He was unbeatable. And what I always took that story to mean, it's not like Sammy was some superhuman physical shape. The man had very serious diabetes. He vastly outlived his life expectancy by decades. But he won because he wasn't holding back with fear.
Gotcha.
He won because his body was primed to let him stay in the moment.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, I think Sammy's sort of an extreme of what we see these women doing, which is staying present and in the moment and staying activated. But they're less like Sammy than you and I. They're less like Sammy and more like you and I, which is that
Right.
they have a ton of fear. We're all freaking afraid all of the time. Literally, I have not talked to a single woman who didn't say, "Oh, hell yes, that was scary." When I talked to Catherine Switzer, right, she talks about, so she's the first woman who ran the Boston Marathon with a bib. There was one woman before her who snuck in as a man, but she was the first woman as a woman with a bib to officially run the Boston Marathon. And they were adamantly against allowing women to run this race. And so when she took her sweatshirt off because she got hot, they figured out that she was a woman. And the race director off to the side said, "What? There's not going to be any babes in my race." And he literally grabbed her and tried to yank her physically out of the race. And had it not been for two very strong allies beside her, she would not have been able to finish that race because they literally physically fought him to fend him off of her and let her continue on in the race.
This is in our lifetime. Like I keep having to remind myself, this
Yes,
is in
in our
our
yeah,
lifetime. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So she was terrified, but she made the decision to keep running because she said, if I stop, they're going to believe that all women are going to stop. And so it was her purpose that allowed her to overcome that fear. And
Mm.
so these habits that I'm mentioning, they are not things to do with your miraculous absence of fear. They are ways to bolster your courage when you have fear.
I love that because I think people are afraid to say that they're afraid.
Mm.
And there are times where I think fear is a really, really good thing. But I also think about how many times I was led to believe that I was a fearless person. I mean, like former gymnasts, like, they can't possibly experience fear. I was so afraid every time I got on the bars. So afraid, so conscious of how many different ways it could go wrong. And in fact, there was, I was learning a new move, and it was like one of my first advanced, like, release moves. You let go of one bar and end up on the other one. And I landed back on the bottom bar and broke my nose and blood everywhere. And and typically what a gymnastics coach would do if you took a fall was get up and go and do it right away before you develop the fear. Just go do it before you can think about it. My nose was spurting blood. There was no get back on right away. And so the fear that I already had got worse and for
Mhm.
sure prevented me from being better on bars than I could have been, either without having had that experience or having someone talk me through the fear.
Mhm.
How to unclutter your mind from the I can't do this. I'm not good enough, or, I'll just kill myself or something, drastic. So how do you teach someone, or how do you coach or encourage someone to work through fear?
So much of it is to begin by acknowledging where the fears are, right? And
Right.
so, if we start with that first habit, which is converting questions into action, the first thing I ask people is, well, when I challenge you to do this big thing, and when I suggest that, hey, you could do this, what limiting beliefs or questions come up? And it does sound like, maybe if we were to convert it to the act of physical clutter, they might say, like, should I keep this? What if I need it someday? How should I organize everything perfectly? Where do I even start? Well, all those questions really don't have answers. Should I keep this? Well, maybe. What if I need it someday? Maybe.
But we're afraid of making the wrong
We're
choice.
afraid of making the wrong choice, right? We're afraid of the implications of our choices. And so when we can get connected to what it is specifically and honest with ourselves about what it is specifically that we are afraid of, then we can start to alchemize those fears.
Well, I mean, so much of that is based on what you were saying before about like opting to do the thing, even if it's not going to be perfect.
That's it.
Because we're afraid I didn't make the perfect choice, or I didn't do the perfect thing. I didn't do it in a perfect way. And because there is the desire to do it perfectly, it leads to inaction. Oh
And
my God, there were so many times in my life there was no action because of the fear of not being able to do it perfectly, or not being able to do it. Forget perfectly, not even being able to do it right. I am so proud of how willing to make mistakes I am now. Like, maybe I'm too willing to make mistakes, but my mistakes are why I am where I am. And I remember for a really long time I didn't like to use the word mistake, you know?
Mhm.
But by not using the word mistake, I was negating the fact that there are, it feels at times like we've made mistakes. My vocabulary has changed a lot as I get older, and not necessarily better, because I forget a lot of the big words I learned way back when, but the vocabulary has changed in a way where there's just more acceptance, I think.
Mhm. What a powerful message to send yourself over and over again.
And a message that I want to send to, we are both mothers of daughters, what I want them to have for themselves.
Truly, truly. And it's normalizing kindness to ourselves.
Mm, yeah.
It's normalizing, I mean, our kids are and ourselves are going to learn more through repeated words and actions than through lessons.
Right. 100%.
Like, how many times have you
100%.
said, hey, Melanie, do this? And you find all this resistance coming up, and you're like, why am I suddenly doing the exact opposite of whatever this is? Right? It's because in essence, we're being advice givers to ourselves. And what we need to hear from ourselves is acceptance. We need to say, oh, you're feeling a lot of feelings. That must be hard.
Yeah.
You're scared right now. Wow. Yeah. That's That's difficult.
Well, it to me means that feelings can be clutter, you know?
Mm,
And sometimes with clutter, we like address it and we clean it and we get rid of it or we reorganize it. And sometimes with clutter, we're like brushing it under the carpet. Like, like let's pretend it's not there because then I'm not really facing what that mental clutter is. Let me just hide it. Let me just hide it. It's just like, when guests come over and you're like, how much more can I fit in this closet? Because I don't want to look like a cluttered person. When I started the decluttering journey, someone was at my house and she said, but I never saw your house is cluttered. First of all, I was hiding it pretty well. Second of all, we all have different thresholds for this. You and I talk about this a lot because I own a lot more things than you own, and I'm perfectly okay. I am mostly okay with that because I'm still in the process of decluttering. But I know no one is ever going to come to my house and see minimalist. They will never see that because I talk about it all the time. I love colors and textures and patterns and mixture of colors and textures and patterns. And if I didn't have all those things, it wouldn't feel good. So, I mean, like it's having the courage to say, my house is going to look the way I want it to look. I don't want my house to look like good housekeeping. I also don't want my home to be like all blonde wood and white Scandinavian style. Like, forgive me for all the people who are out there listening that love that. It's so boring to me. It's so boring. Of course, it's boring to someone with purple hair. Like go with the blondes, let in with the purple. But that fear to express ourselves without being judged by other people.
we're letting ourselves be judged.
Right.
Why is that such a big deal?
Right. Well, I'd like to say, go ahead and judge me. I don't care
Yeah. Right?
because I can't stop I have no control over the way the other person thinks. I only have control over my reaction if they even say it out loud. Although sometimes they don't need to say it out loud. You can just tell in their face. They're like, oh, look at you and your purple hair. Good.
Yeah.
That's on you. That's on you. There was one other thing, one of many things that I took away in the other concept of like hiding our dreams, and
Mm.
not allowing ourselves to talk about our dreams for sure for fear of what other people are going to think. She's crazy to want to do that, or why would she ever want to do that? I would never want to do that. Well, that's the beauty in it.
It's not
And
their
that
dream.
Right. And I think about like how many years there were things that I wanted to do with my life and I put on hold because I thought that there was a certain like linear path that I needed to be on. And I've talked about this before. The fact that I had to leave college for financial reasons left me in like most of my career assuming that I was always going to be limited in how high I could get. Like in my head, it wasn't about how hard you worked, it was about the education that you had. Generational trauma there coming out. Like I had to be educated, not I had to be a hard worker. And what I think is so interesting about that now is, like when you're talking to kids, you can tell them, I'm so proud of you. You're so smart when they do well in school. Or you can say, I'm so proud of you. Look at all the hard work you put into that. And I was not doing that at all. So, how do you get someone to be more courageous in actually sharing what their dreams are with other people?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times I just push them off the cliff.
Okay.
I think we need proof. I talk a lot about evidence in my work, and I think we need proof that we're going to be okay. And we need to see that the world doesn't explode when we just do the thing. So I usually try to help people figure out like what's the smallest thing you can do
Right.
that will prove to you that you're doing it. Right. And many, many, many times I have badgered is maybe a harsher word than the actual reality of it. Cheerleaded and encouraged and supported people in making an Instagram post or a LinkedIn post that says, world, my world, I'm doing this. And I've done, really nudgy things like, I'll just stay here until it's done. I can hang out with you while you do it. Let me help you get it done. I mean,
That is a
because
coach.
we need somebody with us in a lot of instances to help us get past our overthinking. We need eyes on it, right? So I get to be, for my clients,
Right.
oftentimes I get to be the eyes to say, man, that looks really amazing. I'm really impressed with what you're creating. I'm inspired by it. It feels really good. And they trust me, and I trust them, and I trust me to be able to say, you got this. And so, yeah, I've sat beside a lot of people while they've made a post on Substack, LinkedIn, that acknowledges what they're doing. Or maybe it's sending a text to somebody and saying, hey, I've created this amazing new offering. I think it'd be perfect for you and your company. And so it's scary to do that stuff. And there's a fine line between being careless and putting something we're not proud of into the world and overthinking. And so what I try to help people do is like find that balance and what will I feel proud of and when is good enough good enough? And let's just do the thing so that we can learn.
Well,
And part of that is the question you ask at the very beginning, like, what's the worst that could happen? Bobby from fourth grade says Melanie wasn't good at coaching in fourth grade, right? Like it's usually these like super irrelevant opinions that stop us. Like Bobby from fourth grade is like still working at the same tractor supply company that he was in fourth.
yeah,
Yeah, Bobby.
yeah,
What
and
do
he's
you know of the
bald.
world, man?
I like
And
how I just
bald.
said, and he's bald. My husband's bald, but I mean it in a different
I
way. It's a
I
different
had a
kind of bald.
weird like thing for balding guys when I was a child. Like
Really?
my first crushes were like in my like 12 and 13 early teens. I was like really into receding hairlines. I thought they were super cute. So there you
Wow.
go.
I have a feeling Bill's going to really enjoy hearing that.
We
He's
love you,
like,
Bill.
yay. You were making me think about the whole concept of like opting to do it, over not doing it. And the fear being that it's not going to be good enough. It's not, like forget it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be good enough. And so the not doing, we become paralyzed at being able to do whatever it is. I mean, this could be cleaning a closet or this could be starting a new career or a business. And so this podcast right now, episode 13, drops tomorrow. This
I had
podcast wasn't supposed to happen this year. Like my long-term plan was that was something that was going to happen in 2026 after I was more established in my business, whatever that means, and when I could afford to have a team to do all the work for me because I wouldn't be good at it. All those things. I had a business coach who was like, "This is ridiculous."
do the thing.
And she said the thing that I tell people all the time, and that is messy action is better than no action. And so I'm perfectly happy that this little podcast is a little on the messy side. What is that? Done is better than none. Oh yeah, you posted that earlier in the week. Yeah, yeah, yeah. 100%. But the amount of mental clutter that is in here from a lifetime of if it's not perfect, it's not good enough. It is really hard to step away from that voice in your head and say, I am not going to listen to that voice anymore. I'm going to listen to my voice. Well, the reality is, it's my voice in my head that's like, no, 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 no. If it's not perfect, you can't do it. Don't release it. Don't hand it in. Don't turn it in. Yada, yada, yada. I wouldn't be where I am today had I not said, let it be messy. Just do it. Just do it.
Isn't that
And
an
for
interesting word for you to choose too? Messy.
I love that I use that word.
Yeah.
I love that I use that word because
Messy's different than clutter. And there's like there's helpful mess and unhelpful mess.
yeah. Although I sometimes have a hard time with messy because I talked to someone who's close to me in the past, and she let her son know that they were messy people. They were at our home, and I don't have the like perfectly neat home. You can't eat off my floor. I don't want you eating off my floor. Like like it does what it needs to do for us. And she was explaining to him. She's gonna figure out who she is now, but anyway, she was explaining to him that he had to be a little neater in staying in our home, but that they're messy people. I'm like, but then that becomes, a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it is owning the messy. And that was a different kind of messy, you know? And so I do what I play games of semantics with words all the time.
I think the helpful messy is often just real.
Right. It is what it is.
Right. When we're talking about the kind of messy that we admire, it's authenticity, it's imperfection, it's bravery. But the messy maybe that gets in our way is the messy that is protection, that is fear, that is hiding.
Life is messy.
Yeah.
Life is messy. And I mean, like, I can think of like a million examples of how life is messy, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But we get stuck on but it doesn't look good to other people. And I spent way too many years of my life worrying what other people thought.
I think one of the things that comes up so often in my work with women is this story doesn't seem linear and logical.
Oh, please.
Right? Like with careers, people are like, well, A plus B doesn't equal C. And it's like,
Right.
yeah, A plus B equals F. And F is A plus B plus all of your alchemy and lived experience.
I love this. I love this conversation stuff. Well, I mean, I love a million things about it, but I love being able to explore much deeper. What is clutter if we're not talking about my grandmother's china? What is
Mm.
clutter if we're not talking about my 92 tubes of lipstick, which I had to get rid of a month or two ago because I was having
Was it
some
really
issues.
92?
I got rid of like 19 or 20 tubes of lipstick, and that was after having doubts. But I've only replaced two colors because I didn't want to like buy 19 new tubes, because you need purple and dark purple and lavender and pink and peach and red, and you need to be able to layer some of those. Some have to be matte, some have to, the men have just tuned out. They've
No,
just tuned
I
out.
want to say I have never looked at a color of a lipstick. I'm just like, whichever one lipsticks appear in my life. I don't think I've ever bought a lipstick. And I just put on whichever one happens to be my hand. So I'm fascinated by this.
Right. Love lipstick. I really do. I also love a conversation that is always in my head at my very first job, and not my very first job, but my first like career job. And the district manager from my territory was with me, and she pulled out her lipstick, and the other person at the table she was able to analyze her personality based on whether the lipstick went flat, whether it kept a curve, or whether it was straight down the middle. And this woman's was like straight down the middle, like this. And she's like, those are the insane people to agree. But I love that, like, that has stayed with me.
Now I want to know. I have to go analyze my lipstick. It did make me think about the difference between clutter and collection, because I think the delta, at least in my mind, is the difference in intention. Is this right? Is this 20 lipsticks that I wear intentionally? I layer them, I use them, they amplify and enhance my life. Or is this just a pile of stuff that I'm afraid to get rid of because I'm
And
afraid of loss, of someday needing it for this
it could
imaginary
be
future
both.
self?
And it could be both,
Yeah.
I love it when people are like, oh, that color's beautiful. What is it? And I'm like, well, I layered three different things. Good luck getting this one down. But anyway, so the whole point of that was that idea that clutter is mental, it's not just physical. But just in that conversation right there, we can see how the physical clutter can create the mental clutter. And then that mental clutter in turn can create more of the physical clutter. So one of the things that I really like to do with my guests is challenge them. And so for those of you who haven't been to Aransas's house, it is a beautifully curated home of new and old. She is the thrift shopper that I am, and I love that about you. And so you have a very neat, clean, organized, not overstuffed home. So what is your clutter?
I'm looking around me right now. I feel like my plans are pretty manageable. Craft supplies. Craft supplies.
And why is that?
And
Why do you think it's clutter?
I just feel like there's a lot of them. I do fairly routinely go through and try to like get rid of the dried out stuff, but there's always going to be more dried out stuff. There's always like it accumulates because my mom also collects all her craft supplies at my house. I now, for the first time in my life, have a great big garage, and it's like really going to be easy for it to get out of control. And we also have like a free, almost free craft swap by our house where you can go and
Mm,
just like basically pick up free craft supplies. So yeah, I'd say craft supplies. They're really hard for us to get rid of scraps of fabric, and we use them and they're so unique, and like we have 40-year-old ribbon downstairs though, or
mm,
a square of wrapping paper that was just so beautiful from a gift. But eventually it does get used. Like we do kind of cherish the things, but
right.
definitely, I mean, I had not a ton of closet space in my old house or this one. And I had one whole closet just dedicated to craft supplies even there.
I love that. Okay. And what's your mental clutter?
I want to get really honest about this, so I have to think about it for a second. I mean, I think I have a tendency toward, well, I definitely have a tendency toward overdoing
Okay.
everything. Like I overpack my schedule and I overextend myself. And in the past, less now through a lot of work and a lot of intention, but for a lot of my life, I just had a really harmful tendency to take on everything and build up resentment and overwhelm. And like I said, I've worked on it a lot, but it still sneaks in, especially when I'm hosting. Yeah. So I'd say the perfectionist tendencies underneath my overdoing really are my core
I hear
mental clutter.
something else, and you'll tell me if I'm wrong, but I hear like I'm taking everything on, and in my head, when I take on too much, it's because I'm afraid of disappointing others. But while I'm busy not disappointing others, I'm only disappointing myself. And that could be akin to the take care of yourself first, concept. But I think at the end of the day, people treat you the way you treat yourself.
Yeah.
And so if you keep showing them I'll do everything, then they'll let you do everything.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's so much honestly about, like, as Brene Brown calls it, like hustling for worthiness.
Aransas, any last thoughts for the listeners?
Oh, thank you for having me. This has been such a joy. Listen to the podcast. Listen to these stories. If you love Melanie's podcast, you'll listen to the
Listen to Aransas's podcast, not for nothing, but I've already had someone who guested on your show. I am interviewing later today someone who has been a guest on your show because I'm okay with sharing.
I am too.
One of the things that I like about your podcast is I can miss 9 episodes and then and then I can go back and I don't have to listen to it in order. I can just go in and like, oh, that woman sounds really interesting. I would like to hear that story. Thank you for being on my show, being an inspiration, a birthday buddy, a friend, all the things. If you guys don't know Aransas, you need to get to know.
Thank you. I adore you.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Lighten Up, the Art of Living Clutter Free. I hope you found a spark of inspiration to help declutter not just your space, but your mind and life as well. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a little lightness in their life. Remember, it's not about being perfect, it's about progress. Small steps lead to big changes, and I'm here to help you every step of the way. For more tips, resources, and ways to connect, check out my website, follow me on social media. Don't forget to check out the Design Your Healthy Life Strategy program to take your transformation even further. Until next time, keep letting go of what no longer serves you and making room for what truly lights you up.